In this video, we finished welding up the swing bike. We had some challenges along the way, but I try to detail those challenges and what we did to fix them. I'm trying to give you a realistic idea of what it is that I'm going through to get this stuff done. Maybe you'll have an idea of what it is that you'd go through as well. So I think the first thing I need to do is I need to remove the lower part of these shocks. We don't need the suspension. The shocks are too long, and I don't think I'll be able to cut them so well. I'm going to go ahead and remove them. Looks like the way to do that is this black plastic cap comes off, and there's a nut way down there. So I'll go ahead and release that and see if that does the job. And we got the fork crown released. So this is a configuration I'm going for. Just one more weld down here, and we should be done. But at this point, that may be a little bit easier said than done. Not quite sure how I'm going to make that joint. Maybe a piece of flat metal in there. I'm not sure. So, but anyway, when we're done, this is what we should have. I'm thinking something like this may be the way to go. That's a piece of stainless, but I could probably find a piece of mild steel around here to do a similar job. I cut this piece off a piece of bread frame, and that's not the plan. That's just pure luck. It's absolutely perfect. I think that's going to be the way to go. Using a flap disc, I went ahead and cleaned this piece of steel up so we can get ready for some welding. Use a little acetone to clean up these parts here. Got a couple spring clamps here to hold that piece on, and I think I'm ready for a couple tacks. I went ahead and changed the orientation of that angle iron. I think it's going to be a lot easier to weld this way and doesn't really offer any disadvantages. So I've got the bracket welded onto the fork ends, and it's the welding's come out okay, I guess. Although I did blow a big hole over here that I had to fill. Now comes the hard part, figuring out how to match this to the back wheel. So here's our swing bike as I'm getting prepared for the last weld on the frame. I got a C-clamp on it here. And it kind of seems like this is about where I want it to be. So I'm going to take some more measurements and kind of check. I believe that I want this chainstay to be about parallel to the ground if the geometry on this is going to work correctly. As I look at the geometry of this, it's pretty close to where I want. The chainstay is about parallel. I thought that the top tube should be about parallel as well. So it's pretty close, but I do think that I would like to have these forks attached to the bike a little bit forward of here. I don't want the pedal to not have any clearance to the front wheel. So what I'm thinking is I'll take this piece of scrap, weld it to here, and then bend it up so that I can attach the forks maybe a little bit forward here. I think that that's going to be a good direction to go in. So I think this is kind of what I'm looking for here. The top tube is basically horizontal. Chainstay is also pretty close to horizontal. I put that welded this piece of scrap steel on here and then bent it up so it's also fairly horizontal, and it's just C-clamped on there now for fixturing, but I think this is basically what we're looking for. I may make some more adjustments. So I've got this fixtured up so that this bar here is perpendicular to this bar here, and I believe that's about the angle I want. So I'm going to give some tacks, see where we're at, and I think we'll probably just go ahead and finish it up. So we got our bracket welded. The frame is all welded together. The good news is that the rear headset is about vertical. The front headset is about vertical, within about 1/8 of an inch or so when I put a spirit level on it. Chainstay is about horizontal, pretty close enough. The only trouble is that when I did my weld here, I got my piece of steel hot enough that it took the temper out of it. So it's not really able to resist the bend here. So I'm going to have to add a gusset to strengthen this up. So I've got this piece of bike frame that was kind of left over from chopping up the bike, and made a gusset for it here. Bit of a gap down here still, right here. But just a little more shaping, and I think that I'll be ready to go ahead and weld this on here. So I've got my gusset welded on now, and it seems like it's stiff enough. This was a real bear. The fact that this gusset tube is chromoly and the rest of it's mild steel, plus the tube is about 40 thousandths thick and the rest of it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and then the tight angles and everything, I blew more holes in this that I filled in. I can't even tell you how many. So anyway, that was a real challenge. A straight piece of steel would have been a lot easier. But all I need to do is put the C-post on, hook the brakes and the derailleurs back up, and give it a coat of paint, and we should be done. And the final bit of fabrication for this project, I've cut off the stem, and I'm starting to shape it so that I can get the seat mounted, like so. So a little bit more, and I'll weld it, and then I guess it's time to test this thing out. So I think the shaping on this went pretty well, and it's pleased with the angle of the seat, the way that that it's kind of leaning back just a little bit. So I'll fixture this up and get some tacks on there and weld it up, and we should be about done. Well, I got my seat tube welded on and the seat mounted, and we have a swing bike. So I ran into a little trouble here when I welded this seat tube. The weld came in through the inside, so I had to kind of file away at that, and even at that, there's evidence that it still didn't go in too smoothly. So something to keep in mind when you're welding, that if you need the inside of the tube, you got to be careful, I guess. So anyway, yeah, that's the whole point of a swing bike. It's got a whole separate pivot here. So I still have to mess around with the derailleurs, but in a little while we'll give it a try and see how it goes. As I crab walk this bike up and down the street, it feels like I've got this thing totally goofed up and sideways, but actually you can just barely tell. I guess as I practice on it, I'll get a little bit better and make it look a little bit more radical. This thing is a lot of fun to ride, however. I don't think that practicing is going to be too much of a challenge. So I guess this is kind of what I was expecting. The only trouble is that the handlebars are a little bit too low, so it feels like you're constantly ready to go right over the front. I think I've got some other handlebars I'll stick on it, raise those up a little bit so you can sit up a little bit more. But otherwise, I would call this one a success. Thanks for watching. New project with the next video.